Well guys, it's Tuesday and as you can see it's a bright sunny day. It's still pretty cold out there though. None of that dusting has left us since yesterday. Just a little drips off the roof because I had the garage door open and it's warm in here. But we're supposed to get a snowstorm tomorrow and then ice. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, I'm going to continue this video about making these bevel siding jigs. I was calling them cutters yesterday, I actually meant jigs. So that anybody who wants to make a set, if you have the tools, you can make them. If not, you know how I make them, and then I can, you can buy them from me if you'd like to. So either way, I'll continue with that video today. Okay guys, so it just so happens that I need a 1/4" rod, and I'm out of it for right now. So I have this 5/16 threaded rod. So I'm just cutting this down to 1/4". It's part of how I make those jigs. So guys, you might be wondering, why would I cut this bolt down? I mean, I'm spending time here on the lathe and all, and that's the whole purpose. I don't get a lot of lathe time, and I wish I did. But I don't. I only use it when I need to fix something or make something. So I'm actually doing this for the experience of and adding to what I know and how things work by turning this down. You can go and buy a 1/4" metal rod, and that'll solve your problem here. But anyway, you need 7 inches roughly of metal rod, and that's for the LT15 size. Now I don't know what it would be for any other mill, whether the bunk is wider, smaller, or whatever it is, but you'll see how this all goes together then. One thing guys about this old lathe, with cutting here, whatever the measurement is here, it should be down there where when I'm done cutting, because I haven't moved the compound or the angle thing. So that would tell me how far off the lathe is from being center with the point of the tailstock and the center of the chuck, which at this point is looking really good. Okay guys, so I'm going a little ahead of myself here, but just for the camera's sake, once you make the part that goes onto the bunk, and you can make it out of anything you want to, I always do it this way, and this is the way I like doing it. But what you need to do is at this end here, you want to put something on here that's a 1/2 inch high, okay, this piece here. And you want to weld it really good so that it doesn't, break off there from any heavy work that you might put against it. The reason for this thing here is so that when you are down to your last, now let's just say this is wood, when you're down to your last board, you want to be able to cut something useful out of that last board. So what I do is I make a 1" board. This 3/4 inch high gives me plenty of room, about 1/8 inch to cut through there with the Woodmizer and give myself a 1" flat board left at the end of all my cutting. Okay? Now if you don't put that on there, you run the risk of the cant slipping off the cutter or the bevel jig. So I put that on there. It helps to keep the cant on, as well as gives me a 1" place to cut a 1" board at the last cut. So I'll be putting that on this one as well as this one once I get this ground down and everything. Okay, so all it is basically a small piece of metal, that you weld on the back there. The one thing you want to be sure of is don't leave it hang below the bottom, because the inside bottom here has to lay flat down onto the bunk rail. Now there's a couple of tacks in there. That's not going to hurt anything because the bunk rail is rounded at the top. At least on the Woodmizer it is. So that means that that's not going to stop this from setting flat down flush on the bunk. So you need to put this on the part that goes on the bunk. Don't make a mistake and put it on the part that goes on top here. Okay? That would be a mistake. The reason you don't want to put it on here is because if you do, it's liable to slide off. this won't slide off once you have this on the bunk rail and against the back of the little stop that's there. Okay guys, so if you look right here, there's 2 pieces of 1/4 inch round stock. Now that's came from this piece I cut down. So with those 2 pieces, I'm using one as a guide. I ground this off so it's fairly straight along the weld. Okay, so I'm going to put a piece there as a guide to give me thickness. That's all it's there for, is just to give me that 1/4 inch thickness. And I'm going to set the other one right against that. Now I have the ground wire hooked up there to this, and all I'm going to do is weld this round stock to this bottom piece. So I'm still working with the bottom piece that goes onto the bunk. Now I re-welded a couple spots. I wanted it as perfect as I can make it with filling in anything. So don't worry about that. That's going to be ground down. But I've welded this black on here. It's a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch high. It's rounded off so I don't catch anything on there. And now I'm just going to take and weld that first piece here, this one closest to you, to this bottom and leave it there. Now how much weld is out on this side doesn't matter. We don't want any on the opposite side. I found that a round stock, you know, because it's round and goes in, it's easier to weld than if it was a square key. Although if you use a square key, just weld it on one side. Okay, so now what's good about that is that when I go to, this piece gets welded onto the opposite piece that comes down over the top. What that does is it acts like a hinge, but it's a breakaway hinge. So in other words, these pieces can come apart. Alright, so when you look over here, you'll see that I have this same 1/4 inch, and this is the first set I ever made. So and I still use them. I have that 1/4 inch piece. There's an opening there, and then I weld one onto the top piece. And all I do is set that in there, and that allows this to move up and down, and I still have enough to catch my wood over here. Okay, I'll show you how to make the rest of it as I go. But this is what the back looks like, or I mean the bottom piece. I'm going to do a little bit more touch-up welding there to make that nicer on this side. I'm not going to do any welding on that side. I want the key or the breakaway hinge to be able to roll in there and hit this on this side. I don't want it to be up, I want it to hit it. That gives me the 1/4 inch thickness I need when I'm making the flat cut on the bevel siding. Okay guys, so you want to look right here. Let me try and zoom in here. So that's that other round piece of rod. I'm putting it right at the edge of this, and I'm keeping this away from here so that nothing interferes with it being able to turn. So if you leave 3/8 of an inch of metal hanging out here, or 1/2 inch, whatever, it's not going to hurt anything. You'll be able to adjust it as you go. So this is right at the edge of that metal piece. So what I'm going to do is tack that on both ends, and then I'll weld it. Now I'm only using the magnet to hold that because there's no really good way to get in there with what I have to hold this there. So once I get that like that, just turn it up so I can weld. I like welding flat. It gives me the best weld, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay, so what's important here when you're welding is that the top of this, there's no weld over the top. Same thing with this one on this side. You don't want any weld over the top. You need this metal piece to hit that, and this round stock to hit this on this side of the pin. Okay, so now we have our breakaway hinge there. That fits down in there nice, and I have no problem with that. Now you may want to grind away a little bit of this just to make sure it's got that 1/4 of an inch, and keep the fillet within the radius of the round stuff. Okay, so we have a nice hinge effect there, and that's going to be good. Again, I have to grind this all off of here. It'll be better as I grind that. Okay guys, so this one is cleaned up as much as I'm going to, maybe I'll clean it up a little more, brush it up a little smoother, but basically that's pretty much finished for all intents and purposes except for painting. So that's the piece that goes onto the bunk rail. You put it on the bunk rail, you slide it against the little metal block that's on an LT15, that's the stop. Now whatever you have, you know, when your sawmill, just push that against whatever's there, I would imagine, but this is specifically for the LT15. I don't know about the other mills. Alright, so then this is the top piece. It's a breakaway hinge, and that hinge serves as 2 purposes. One, the weight of the cant on this stops this from pulling that way. Okay, so in other words, if you see it like that, you know you got to put it back over the top of the breakaway hinge there. Alright, so that goes back in there, and then this just goes up and down. Not only has to go a 1/2 of an inch actually, so it's not, or 3/4 of an inch altogether. It's not a big deal, but you want to make sure it does it without any issues. Okay, and then this acts like a stop. When the board is on here, the cant is on here, that stops it from pulling away from the jig. Okay, so then the next thing I did was, after I put that on there and the breakaway hinge is where it's supposed to be, I come down from this thing here, because this is an 8-inch cant you'll be using, and put a mark right at 8 inches, put it across there, and in reality it's down the side here where you're going to need it. Okay. Now this is this thing is not, you know, how can I put this? This is a good idea, and this thing works. And I've had a bunch of people tell me how happy they are with them. And the idea was just something that I came up with, and it was a good idea in reality to make this thing work with a bevel siding without costing a lot of money. Okay, so that's all that this is for. It's made for a manual mill to work manually. I want to round this off a little bit here yet, but in here there's going to be a hole cut in here now on both sides, and it's not just a round hole. It could be a round hole, but a round hole tends to be too big for what I'm trying to do. Although if I redesign that piece that's in there, then maybe I could make a round hole. But anyway, I'm going to show you the hole I'm going to put in that as I go here. So for right now, I need to go and eat dinner. So I don't know if I'm going to come back and add to this video. If not, I'll add to the video tomorrow. But either way, what happens with this thing now is you need a piece of metal, and let's see here, just I would say a 1/2 inch in there and a 1/2 inch out here. So you're looking at a piece like 3.5 inches long of 3/4. Now this is 3/4 of an inch thick, of 3/4 by 1. Okay guys, so the next piece that I'm working on is, I have a 3/4. This is exactly 3/4 to within 1/2 of a thou actually, and the thickness of it is 1/4 of an inch. Now here's the thing with this. none of the measurements are really that critical, you know, as long as the thing can move up and down. But this thing has to be 1/4 of an inch thick, and it has to be 3/4. But what you want here is you want to try and have a flat face on one side, so that when this thing turns, and here you're going to be turning this, okay? If you, once you know which way it's going to go, the handle's going to be sticking out this way, okay? So I'm going to be turning it down and up, down and up. What you want to do is on this up side, the upturn, you want to file a bevel on there a little bit so that it's easier to turn. You don't want a square edge. Like right now, if you were to look at that, and I know you can't really see in the camera, but this is square, okay? This and this side is perpendicular. You want to take and cut off, or not cut off, but just grind with the grinder or file, so that so that when you roll this up and you're hitting underneath this piece, you want it to roll easy, but you want the bottom to stay flat, so that when the bottom rolls up, it finds that flat spot. You hear that? You want to find that flat spot, because that's what's going to keep this thing from falling off, you know, from dropping one down or one up. You want to keep them so that one is both of them are the same way. So if it rolls one way or the other and goes down, you're going to be cutting wrong. So you want to make sure that you have a flat bottom on there. So that's the part that I feel is critical. I don't feel that none of the other parts are, but that is. So that's something that I try to do. So once I cut this and I know how I'm going to fit it into this, I'm going to be putting this through here, okay? Once I do that and I figure out the length of this, I'll cut it. I'll be welding a flat piece on the back side here so that it can turn. And I have to show you that because it can't be totally round. It has to be flat on one side so that when you roll this, nothing is sticking up above this, because you only have the thickness of the metal, like 1/8 of an inch or better, to be able to have play. So I'll show that to you as I go. So guys, this hole then is a type of a hole that works best for this. What this is going to do, now this piece has to lay flat against that, so you can see I have to take a little off here and a little off there. But it's when you start to turn this, it's 3/4 of an inch laying flat like that. But when you turn it, it becomes about 1/8 or 1/16 longer, because you're going from one opposite corner to the opposite corner, like on a diagonal. So you need to make sure you have enough room there. But it does have to lay flat on the top. So this has to be a flat cut up here on the top, because you can see there's a little gap there. That can't be. That has to be flush against the bottom of this plate. Okay, so that has to be flush, and then the rest of it, as long as it can turn, you know, one turn, it only has to turn on a 90 to get the handle, the indicator, up or down for how you're cutting. So got to finish flattening this out yet, and then do the other side. But that's the type of a hole you would need. Then once you get this through here, let's just say it's coming through from the other side, you got to put something on here that's not going to let this go back through. But when you turn this down like this, it has to be, and it's laying flat, it cannot be more than the thickness of your steel. So you sort of have sort of like a moon shape, but without this curve. More like a piece of a pie, okay? Not even a piece of a pie. What am I thinking here? Be like a circle with a cutoff on it. Something like a secant. Okay guys, so I went to eat dinner and I did a little work on here. I just want to show you, this is the type of a cut you want to make in this thing, and here's why. When this when this latch, and by the way, this is the washer that goes on here to keep this thing from falling out. And it's shaped like that because when you turn it, it cannot be sticking above this metal. Okay, it has to be below the metal all the time when you turn it. So we'll be cutting this off and putting a handle on here. But here's the thing, when this is laying flat, it has to be touching the bottom of this. Then, when you turn it this way, you have 3/4 of an inch there showing. Now, you may be able to figure out a different way to do this. I've been thinking about it, and there's probably some other ways that might work. But for right now, this is what I've been doing, and this seems to work pretty much the best way for me. So, this is how I make them. So I hope you can see that. When it's flat, you're cutting a straight cut. When you turn this up, you're cutting a bevel cut. That's how simple this is. So this goes up and down on top of the other piece. Okay? And it works very well. The siding, I've cut, I can't tell you how many skids of siding I've cut, and all of it has come out well. Occasionally I'll get one with a thin edge on the smaller side, and sometimes it could be because the log is warping while you're cutting, and other times it's just a matter of, you know, you didn't go down low enough, or, you know, you made a bad cut somehow. But either way, this is the key to this thing, that this lays flat when you're cutting a flat cut, straight cut, and when you're cutting a bevel cut, you just turn it up. That is the whole key to how this thing works. Guys, I hope you had a good day. My day was good. Got to go out with Bullseye a couple of times today, and he's seeming pretty good. And tomorrow we're supposed to get a snowstorm, so I brought everything into the garage so I don't have to worry about that. So all you guys that are having to get up tomorrow to a snowy day or icy day, just be careful out there. Have a good one, guys. Bye.